AITA for wanting my wife to cut her mother out of her life. We married 2 years, been together since 2015, Mil, Mexican woman, W Chicana, white. I urge W to cut Mil out of life, as she only brings stress and not pleasant things to my wife and our life. Diagnosed, anxiety, diagnosed with PTSD and depression, cause her M. While I do feel bad about this, as families are a touchy subject, our subsequent life would be better with her out. She may finally agree, but I am not sure how hard I should push. I will explain the final straw. So, we have an amazing dog that we took over from my Mil, 50s, in early 2020, prior to the pandemic, due to her apartment lighting on fire, a tragedy that the beloved cat died, but she was out walking the dog, our dog now, though she contests this, with one of her suitors, a married/estranged man. I believe she left something on the stove, what the fire investigator said, but I believe he did not want to implicate her, as a few other apartments were destroyed. A different suitor got her the dog in 2017, as my wife and I even then did not agree with her having a dog due to her working all the time, complain about money, but then get a dog, not actually ever think anything through, and honestly to me, not a loving being whatsoever. I would bring food over, went to doggy class with him when she bailed, take him on walks as would my wife. We had a feeling we would end up with him, and lo and behold, we did. She moved in with my wife's boss. My wife worked with a special needs child, autism, and family for 5 years to that point, as the Mil would occasional babysit for the family after my wife needed her to cover for her one day. We offered to take Mil in, but she refused, as her and I had gotten in a huge argument about 8 months prior because she walked into their apartment. W and her mom split an apartment, and claimed the dog ate something from her room and began berating her, and I sprung to her defense, as she never defends herself, and said it was her other daughter, 6 years younger, who took the dog to the beach without washing him, or it was her with her trash mess she leaves everywhere, or salt on the ground as she does bruhidaya. She ran over to me sitting on the couch and put her finger in my face, screaming at me saying, "You don't talk to me like that." I naturally yelled back, "My dad is a yeller," then apologizes after. She never has anyone stand up to her. Things were said. I told her her own dog hates her, our dog now, and she is a terrible person. She apparently mumbled under her breath in Spanish that I will die soon, etc. Wife wasn't mad at me per se, just surprised, and also told me prior boyfriends have also yelled at her in the past, so I didn't feel so bad after that, although was rattled and not proud. I asked multiple people about my actions, said I was semi-justified, but it was her apartment and / or we weren't married yet. Post-fire, we took the dog in, and she moves in my wife's place of work, semi-helping with the 3 kids that live there too. They are a wealthy-ish foreign family, and my wife is still working in the household despite my pleas to leave the job, but she really cares for the autistic girl, too much in my opinion. The family probably had no idea how long she would stay. A different nanny fired as a result of Mil insistence, and the gardener too. She then proceeds to complain about how much she has to do there, all her fault / can move out whenever she sees fit. This continues, and we have our dog now, although she brings our dog to the house, her work, every day as she can. We get engaged. Wife starts seeing a psychologist, as she saw one growing up as well to deal with her mom, probably spent like 10K in 1 year on this. We get a chance to move to Switzerland with a new job. We rush get married so she can get a visa too. She asks her mom if she can bring the dog to Europe. Her therapist prescribed the dog to her as a psychiatric support dog. Her mom says yes. I did not even think we had to ask her, as it is our dog, and the dog hates her and runs away from her. Fast forward to a few months ago, we moved back to the US as my wife has some health issues. We stay at my wife's former boss's house, family friends at this point. The kids were in our wedding. However, my Mil is still here. The plan was to stay there for a few weeks, but then my wife collapses. Our second day back was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. I sleep at the hospital every day, come home to shower and see our dog, buy him food etc. Mill is actually being helpful, although she tells me one day she let us take the dog to Europe as she knows her daughter is a baby and couldn't handle it without him. In the meantime sometimes takes my wife to radiation and sometimes chemo a few times a week as I am working and makes her breakfast. Doing what a mother should do. But during the rides to the hospital Mill tells her that she has everything worse, her cancer isn't bad. Mill is a hypochondriac, her fibromyalgia, cysts, headaches, back pain has been a talk for years etc., it is never ending with the woman. We ignore it at this point. 1 week after wife is done with cancer therapy, she tells plotting with my Sil that she is so glad her dog is back. And we brought him back. I find this out after my Sil says she wants to rehome her friend's dog to her mom to avoid a dispute of our dog. I am like, what? Whose dog? My wife blamed her sister for butting in, but I am like, she didn't make that idea up, it had to come from your mom herself. Fast forward a week later, a new dog, other GR, is in the house, mind you, not her house, it is her boss, without discussing with the boss, as she already has 2 cats during COVID she brought to the house. The boss has other more important things going on in life and just says you take care of it. But to not be aware or think that is okay to do is baffling to me. And I occasionally correct our dog and she will butt in and says you can do whatever you want, that is my dog. I angrily told my wife to talk to her mother so I don't lose it. She finally stands up for herself and says, what's your problem? Her mom tells her, you forget that is my dog, you can't handle him, you are crazy, you sleep all day and don't walk him and we're not equipped to take care of him. Meanwhile this lady is staying at this house for 3 years with no end in sight, with 3 other pets now. My wife says no, we have had him for 3.5 years. My service dog and you are taking him from me after I have cancer / recovering and my husband takes him out all the time. She proceeds to tell her, I am like this because I had a mother like you are only living here because I knew this family and they took you in, and I will take you to court for the dog. Disclaimer, she never signed anything over to us. Called her a narcissist. Mill said my wife is feeling tough because she isn't sick anymore. Meanwhile we get the results this week after her course of treatment. Anyway, my Mill has always done silent treatment, but now her energy and aura is just awful and I am not some energy person. She has made the household awkward, and is being rude to all. My wife has known these kids, 14 autism, 2x7 twins, for 7 years, longer than my Mill. And my Mill told the 2 kids not on the spectrum to not tell us, but that, me and wife, are on the spectrum, we are idiots and to not talk to us. The little twin told us this, and now my wife was pissed and couldn't believe she would involve little children in this ridiculous dispute. I said she is an awful person and have always known this. She is a user, she is not a mother. She tells my wife all the time she doesn't like the kids, twins, even after 3 years. The special needs girl has regressed so much after we left to move abroad. We are now moving out, a bit sooner than we wanted, or I would have paid her old boss rent to stay longer as we have hospital bills, but my awful Mill is still here. Mill background. My wife went into emergency surgery before we knew she had cancer, or doctor comes out and said I think it is a tumor after looking in. Mill claims loudly that is what I have. Her sister and I pay her no mind as she always needs attention. After we took our dog over, one time Mill went with us for a dog emergency, she saw he was under our name, and that is all she cared about, not how was the dog, is he okay etc. Had my wife at 18, had a love child with another man, Sil, while married to my wife's dad. They eventually divorced after she tried to stab him, he jumped out a 2nd-story window. My wife remembers taking her sister into the closet and telling the police the truth. Her mom holds that against her. Been married 4 times. Twice to same guy. Wife chose to stay her one of her stepdads from middle and HS not in her native California rather than live with her mom. Used one to get her citizenship. Wife went to therapy when younger also, therapist said her mom is a narcissist. Left my wife on her first Christmas back to living all alone in California just to road trip, after my wife has a boyfriend die in combat. Sil is the favorite. My family growing up was very even for everything. The Sil living with them in the apartment for years never contributing rent, meanwhile my wife has a mug put back into her room since it was in her kitchen or could not take a bottle of water. Meanwhile, her sister at age 28 is still getting cell phone paid for her, had he first car, she still owns, bought for her. And I have seen money left out for her still at this age. Meanwhile the Sil also had PTSD from mill, avoids her often, but still gets help from her money-wise. Crazy. The children of a narcissist are often children who grow up to be codependent, people pleasers, and have low self-esteem. Wife became codependent, her sister became a people pleaser. Told my wife while we were abroad that I was going to divorce her since she was not working, very difficult for her to get a job there. Made up stories she has a brain tumor when my wife was in high school. Probably more things, but all I have in the coffers from memory about her. Never met her father although he lives 20 minutes away. He no-showed to our wedding after saying yes. I have no idea how my wife turned out so sweet being raised how she was. A part of me moved us to Europe to get her away from mill and her work environment, but unfortunately the sickness made us so close to her now. We are moving out quickly to get away from her, however I want her to commit to this and not have her snake her way back in.